Segment 2, Gold and Black Live. We're here to talk some football after Dave Shondell joined us, and we did talk some football with Dave as well, as we always enjoy that opportunity. I want to thank our sponsors, Triple X, on the hill but on the level, a Purdue tradition since 1929. Greg and Carrie Ayersman, dear friends of the show, and have been awfully good to Gold and Black over the years. So is John Basham and Basham Reynolds. They're still busy. They're not starting the 2019-20 school year, but it won't be long until apartment reservations there. And of course, Hilton Garden Inn when tomorrow's a big day, State HGI tonight, and State Farm agent Trent Johnson at trentismyagent.com. I've had the opportunity to see Trent a time or two this week, not on personal business, just talking football, and always enjoy that. Trent will be busy tonight at a high school game where he and his staff will be working. But Brian, we've been talking off the air with Dave and just trying to put this game as a really intriguing one. Purdue, Nebraska tomorrow, 3:30 p.m. And it's intriguing because Nebraska's, you've been harping, and correctly I think so, about how Boston College was maybe a little bit easier matchup for Purdue, or a team that Purdue could defend better.
A simpler matchup.
Yeah, and yet Nebraska brings some challenges.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much unknown with Nebraska just because they haven't played at full strength under normal game conditions very much.
Yeah.
So when you look at how often they've played with Adrian Martinez at quarterback, when they've been in situations where they're trying to win, and obviously they could have played better early in Michigan and made that a very different game, but the reality was that was not their varsity playing that entire game. So you really don't have a whole lot to draw on. What you do have to draw on is philosophically what they want to do offensively is the polar opposite of what Purdue saw against Boston College. And what Boston College did is what Purdue is designed, built philosophically, physically, whatever it may be, to stop. It was I don't want to say it was an easy matchup. It was a simpler matchup. Purdue's MO defensively is take away the run first. Their personnel is better in confined spaces than it is in space. That has been proven through the course of the season thus far. What Nebraska's going to do is they're going to go fast. They're going to spread Purdue out. They're going to put them in entirely different situations defensively than Purdue faced last week. Last week was the ideal matchup for Purdue defensively. Now, Boston College is very good at what they do, but still what they do is in line perfectly with what Purdue is designed to stop. Whereas what Nebraska is going to do offensively tomorrow, or try to do at least, is the opposite of what Purdue has proven itself to be good at stopping. So there's a lot of unknowns here, and I wouldn't touch that line if I had to.
The 3-point
for that reason.
Purdue a 3-point favorite. We were talking about how crazy, if you look back from a broad stroke perspective of where Nebraska's been historically, to think a 1-3 Purdue team is a favorite on the road in Lincoln is almost mind-boggling. But that is the case, at least from an odds perspective. All right, if you're Purdue and you want to win by scoring more points tomorrow, but what do you have to do early on? I mean, this is a team that one would think some of the formula that worked last week, meaning fewer penalties, win the turnover battle, stating the obvious, but you would think you'd want to stem the tide of their emotion if Nebraska's jacked up to start this game.
Correct. All of those things really matter, and they will matter in every game this season. The turnovers, the penalties, all that little stuff that cost Purdue wins early in the season. But I think tomorrow might be especially important for Purdue for a lot of the same reasons it was important last week against Boston College. That was more of a style of play thing. This might be a situational thing. If Purdue can get up early, put the pressure on Nebraska, maybe get them thinking about the fact that, we're 0-3, maybe disappoint that crowd a little bit right off the bat, couldn't hurt you at all. I think it's really important Purdue get off to a good start, if not get a lead early.
Yeah, you look at this game, too. David Blau has played as well as any quarterback in the country, pretty much, for the last 2 weeks. Pretty hard to argue that. He's been absolutely fantastic in a number of different fronts. He does bring some maturity in what will be a hostile environment and an offense that seems to have some confidence in itself. How do you see that in terms of Nebraska? It's again a little bit hard to tell. They got gashed early against Michigan, but hard to tell where they are defensively. They're not great defensively, we know that, but they're not as bad as they were last week either.
Isn't it funny what happens? How well a Purdue quarterback plays when the other one's not available? I mean, that's been sort of the pattern. I'm not saying there's anything behind it. No. I'm saying that's just kind of the way it's been. But Blau has obviously seem to have absolute command over this. This is the most authoritative he seems to have been playing. He's not making a lot of mistakes. I know he's held the ball a little bit too long a couple times, but the turnovers, there haven't been any. I think that's the things that have held him back in the past have been maybe the indecision at times, maybe the turnovers, things like that. But he's played damn near flawless football.
Yeah, he has.
Now, can you continue doing that? Can you take that on the road with you? Can you even sustain that? It's been such a high level of football he's been playing. Can he keep getting the help he's been getting? The receivers are playing very well. Obviously, Rondell Moore, as he said this week, when you throw a 5-yard pass to Rondell Moore and he scores from 70 yards out, it typically makes a quarterback look pretty good. So he's been the product, too, of his supporting cast as well. So a lot has to go into him continuing this really, really high level of play. But if it continues, Purdue's going to have a chance to beat everybody they play the rest of the year.
Yeah, Isaac Zico has been really good the last 2 weeks, and Terry Wright gets a nice touchdown reception last week. Really great pass from David Blau. The tight ends also. I mean, everything seems to be, from a confidence standpoint, be good. You have to think Nebraska's got a defensive tackle that's out, but again, very, very difficult to know what we're going to see when Nebraska takes the field, and maybe to some extent Purdue as well, because it's that first road game. All right, so you're sitting at 1-3 in your Purdue right now, and you have a schedule that is, like you said, there's 8 games left on it, and yeah, Ohio State's going to be awfully tough to handle. I get that, and there's other games that are going to be difficult, to say the least. But is there any way to say, oh, you know, it wasn't what you expected, but there's a confidence here that seems to be really an interesting dynamic, just based on the last 2 games, and it's been different than I can remember it being,
Right.
just being around teams for a while.
Right. Well, as Bill Parcells used to say, you are what your record says you are,
Yeah.
and that's indisputable. I mean,
Yeah.
On paper it says you are 1-3, and you are 1-3. But Purdue shouldn't feel like a 1-3 team with what they're coming off most recently, dominating a ranked opponent at home, dominating every phase of the game, dominating
Yeah.
a ranked opponent at home. After 3 games you lost, but easily, maybe not easily, but under a reasonable set of circumstances, all of them could have gone the other way. You were good enough to win those games, you just didn't. For one reason or another, you just didn't win those games. So it's not like you got your brains beat in weeks 1 through 3, and you were 0-3 because of it, and now you're 1-3 because of it. You easily could be 3-1, 2-2, even 4-0. 4-0 would be the extreme end of that spectrum, obviously, but clearly you are not a 1-3 football team in terms of the caliber of the performances you've put forth. A penalty here, a turnover here, whatever it may be, and the outlook for this looks entirely different.
Yeah.
So
And you'd be
Purdue should carry itself like a team that's much better than its record.
Yeah, and you're gonna have to, if you're a Purdue fan, there are several reasons for optimism. If you can get through tomorrow and get into your bye week from that standpoint. Okay, basketball. You had the chance to start a basketball practice this week. Matt Painter and company are very different. A lot of new faces, or a lot of faces of guys that are going to have to make an impact, but really going to be an interesting team to watch.
They do all have faces, yes.
Yes, they all have faces. 100% of them do.
Yeah, I mean, it's an entirely different team from what we've seen the last couple of years, in the sense that, you know, Purdue played fast. You know, Purdue didn't play slow. I don't want to say they played fast, but they didn't play slow. People think they played slow because they were so big, because everything started with the big guys. But they did shoot a lot of threes. They were, maybe they weren't as guard-initiated or guard-oriented as this team is going to be this year, but the focal point now changes. Obviously, it goes from the interior, and Purdue had balance the last couple of classes, or the last couple of teams, but that balance all started in the post. The post is now a complementary piece to the backcourt. I think Matt Harms and Evan Boudreaux will get post touches, but they will not be option 1A and 1B every time down the floor. I think, obviously, you know, it seems to be oversimplifying things a little bit to suggest that everything starts and a lot of it finishes with Carson Edwards. But I think it's fair to say that they need him influencing everything in front of him at all times. They need him making plays not only for himself but for others. That's a role he's going to have to take on and show he can handle very well and win in. for his career moving forward, because that's what the NBA is going to want to see from him. But I think you're going to see his usage rates be at the Glenn Robinson, Rick Mount sorts of levels. And, I don't think it's unfair to say Purdue goes as far as he can take them. He has a good supporting cast. He has young guys, but they're young.
Yeah.
There are guys around him who are going to be really good players. Matt Harms and Nogel Eastern, among the returners, are going to be very good. I think they can be very good this year, but this is clearly Carson Edwards' team, and they go as far as he can take them. He would never say that.
Yeah.
Obviously, nor should he, but I think that's the reality.
All right, last question for you. Who's your most intriguing guy to watch, though? I mean, who do you think is the, I don't say X factor, but just somebody that's got your attention early on, that might be somebody that not necessarily under the radar, but who do you keep an eye on as you look at practice from time to time?
Well, I mean, there are 100 different ways to answer that question. I don't want to cop out and go with known commodities as X factors, but I think, Purdue 2 years in a row has had a sophomore go from not even being all Big Ten to being an All-American. And I'm not saying that that's going to happen. That can happen for Nogel Eastern or Matt Harms, but I think both of them are in line for significant jumps forward in larger roles and off of the improvement that should come, from their experience last year and whatever they got done this offseason. So I think both of those guys could go from pretty good to really good between their freshman and sophomore years. In terms of guys who are kind of unknowns, obviously when you have so many newcomers, it's really hard to just pick one. But I think the two that Purdue needs to be good right away are Eric Hunter and Evan Boudreau, because of their respective situations at their positions. Purdue needs Eric Hunter to be a grown-up right away, to be a veteran right away, because he's going to have to play a couple different roles for Purdue. He's going to be their backup point guard, basically. I think Evan Boudreau, obviously, there's a void there that they need him to fill. They're counting on him to fill. But the other guy who's really intriguing is Aaron Wheeler. I don't know where he fits in. I don't think they know where he fits in. But from an athletic perspective, from a skills perspective, I think the raw materials there are pretty significant. And he can be really good at some point in his college career. Whether that's right now or not, we don't know. They don't know what position to put him at right now. I don't know how much that really matters, but it matters at least a little bit in terms of where he fits into the picture.
All right, a lot more to come on Purdue basketball. The Boilermakers will open its exhibition season November 1st. I know Larry Clisby's been watching our show, and I've been texting back and forth today. Larry coming along really well. I know he's eager to get back up here for that as well. So we'll take a 2-minute break, bring in Danny Anthrop to close out our show. I'm sure Danny will have a lot to talk about with Purdue football, his current experience in the Lafayette Police Force, and his perspective on that as well. So we'll look forward to doing that in a couple of minutes on Gold and Black Live.